if she likes you, she's gonna fall in love with you. If she falls in love with you, she's gonna want to marry you. If she's gonna want to marry you, she's gonna want the traditional life. That's generally what's gonna happen. Hey everyone, before we get started, please remember to like, subscribe, comment, hit the notification bell is I think what everyone says these days. Or just, to let me know that you're out there, you're enjoying the podcast, and thanks a lot. Yo, hey, what's going on everyone? Welcome to episode, what is this, 170? 172? I think, 172. It's episode 172 of the podcast, a full episode this time, and I'm doing a review of We Couldn't Become Adults, a new Netflix movie that just came out when I'm recording this. And it gives a lot of insights into life in Japan, and I break down a lot of stuff, especially for the guys, relationship advice and things like that. I really go a bit deeper into it, but don't worry. The first part of the podcast is a spoiler-free review of the movie, and then at some point I'll let you know, and then I get into spoiler talk, and I really go deep into my thoughts and analysis of the flick. So if you've seen it already, planning or seeing it, or just have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about, just go ahead, listen, go ahead, watch. I'll tell you what's up, and then you can enjoy the movie, and then listen to my fucking crazy ass opinion. Okay, so enjoy. Yo, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Well, I'm back. Let me say that. After a little bit of not a hiatus, but it's been a couple weeks since we had a chance to talk. My apologies for not being around the last week. Just I caught a cold. Pretty much is what happened. Not like it wasn't the thing, but I just had a cold for I think 1 or 2 days. Again, just like I had a really runny nose and was a little bit fatigued. So I had some things to do anyway. But like events, family, stuff like that. My son's sports festival event, which was interesting, Japanese event. And then I had 1 day at work. And so when Sunday rolled around, I was already starting to feel better. But I wasn't 100% better. So I was just like, all right, let me just, not do anything. I just had a little bit of work, and then Sunday and Monday off. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to rest these next 2 days just to make sure 100% fully recover. And then, I got through the week again. So that's why there wasn't any content for me last week or for a while. And of course, this will be a few days after a week. So it'll be a little bit over 2 weeks since I didn't have really put out anything. And that's just the reason why. I felt myself getting a little bit of a cold on Thursday last week. Then Friday, of course, no fever nor anything like that. But then Friday, I had some stuff to do. I knew it was just a cold, because the weather was changing here quite a bit. And then Friday, I had my son's sports festival, and I went. Another one of my friends, he had this really cool NFT exhibition that I went to. It was the first ever NFT exhibition here in Tokyo. One of my real close friends here, he did that. So I went to the sports festival, did that, and then I went to Ginza to check that out. So I was tired. I was exhausted. I was like, okay, fine. So I went to sleep. I woke up for work the next day. I had a full day of work. My nose was running like a faucet. It was so disgusting. It looked like my mask was completely soaking wet with snot. It was horrible. And then I came back and I just slept. And then Sunday I was like, okay, I feel quite a bit better. I just had half a day, and then after I got through my half a day, I was like, all right, fine. I just went home and slept. And then Sunday, I was like, okay, I know I'm a lot better. And then Monday, I was just shook off the last little bit of my cold, and I was fine. But yeah. So my apologies for that, not being around for a little bit. But that's it. I know my voice doesn't sound 100% either, which is because I went to a house party last night or yesterday. Not like a party, but just families to family, dinner, lunch party. And I drank, I bought a big thing of sake again. I drank. So, Not like a crazy amount, but again, like I don't really drink that much anyway recently. So, but I drank a significant amount of some, good wine, good sake, some good food. So yeah, I kind of passed out. Last night I came back home, I just passed out. So, but I had today off and I took my son to the barbershop for the first time. If you are in Japan, you are in Tokyo area, I will say they did a really good job on my son's hair. It's this place called The Room 806 is, a place for, black people's haircuts. Basically, it's like a barbershop, vibe. And yeah, they did a good job, really great job on my son's hair. So he wanted he wanted a line up or a shape up as we call it in Washington D.C., but he wanted one. He just randomly told me, like in the bath, like I want a line in my hair. I was like, all right, cool, I'll take you to the barbershop. I mean, I mentioned it to him when he was like 3 years old, and he was just like, I don't want that shit. But he's getting older. He started to think about style and stuff like that. So I was kind of happy. And he did great at the barbershop. He had a great time. Just soaking up the atmosphere of the place, and it was interesting, and I was happy to spend that time with him because it was clear, like my son, I was just watching it and thinking back on, my son is clearly a Japanese kid. He's a happy-go-lucky, kind of weird, kind of quirky Japanese kid, but it's cool that, I was explaining to like my wife and my mother-in-law, like, he is himself and he was comfortable in that situation, and that's kind of, because I remember having that same kind of feeling, like, growing up, like my parents are from the Caribbean, and I was like, I was an American kid, like I'm clearly not a Caribbean kid, but I was always comfortable in an environment around Caribbean people. I'd be like the American kid in the Caribbean situation. And I feel like that's an important skill for my son to have as well, for him to be himself in situations around other people who, of course, black culture is kind of part of him. So I want him to be able to understand that part, just like Caribbean culture was part of me. And, I needed to kind of be aware and understand it and familiarize myself with it, because it is a part of myself. And so, like, there was other barbershops. I was looking for barbershops, like, hold on, let me make sure I give these guys a shout out. So let me just put a link. 1 second. Let me type this. Okay. I'll put their website, and just, if there's anybody in the Tokyo area, who wants a good cut, a black barber, I say I can vouch for them and what they did. It was an affordable price, right in the middle of Roppongi. So it was good. It was good. If you're, like Tokyo, Northern Tokyo, whatever, I'd say, like, just go there. Just a heads up. But anyway, they had Omarion, picture of Omarion. Omarion gets his cuts there. So, so it's good. But yeah, so I'm not hungover now, but I'm not drinking tonight, because of that. And yeah, I'm just a little bit more chill, just running around with my son and, hungover in the morning. So it's not going to be a super, super long episode, but there is something really, really fun and significant, which of course, because you read the title. It's always weird, like recording this, because when I record it, like, the stuff that I know I'm going to put on the podcast, like the title and the description and stuff like that, I record after. So I know, like, you've heard and all this shit, but like I haven't done it yet. So I kind of like talk about it, but this is going to be like the last thing you guys consume. So it's kind of weird like that. For me, like as I talk, it's kind of weird for me to, think about it in that way, but it's time. Ooh. Okay, whatever. Anyway, let's get into it. So yeah, this is not going to be super, super long, but as you can tell from the title of this episode, I am going to be giving a movie review. I just finished the movie. It just premiered on Netflix. It's called We Couldn't Become Adults is the English title, and I think the Japanese title is Bokutachi wa Otona ni naranakata? I think so. I think that's what it's called. But yeah, pretty much, or is it Mina Mitai ni? I forgot exactly. Oh, fuck, I'm not even gonna check. I can't remember exactly. Or or like we all couldn't become adults or something like that. Yeah, again, whatever, fuck it, whatever. But anyway, that's not the important thing. You can read the title in the description and of course, the trailer link, which I have put in the description wherever the fuck you're consuming this. But yeah, pretty much. I watched, I think, the first half of the movie the other night. And by the way, sorry, this might be a little bit too loud. Is this too loud? I don't know. It feels like. Hopefully, this is not too loud. I don't know. Whatever. I'm just like, fuck it, because when I was doing some stuff with the other day, I might have turned it. I changed my settings, my mic settings a little bit. So my apologies if my voice is too loud and if my voice pops a little bit. I'll listen back to it and double check, make sure it's not crazy. But just looking at my levels, my mic might be a little bit too high. I adjusted, I think, around to the level that I normally do, but I don't know, whatever. Again, I'm still, OBS plus on GarageBand for official episodes. So I'm still getting my groove on. I don't know what that was, but whatever. So yeah, just bear with me on that. But yeah, okay. So the movie. So here's what I'm gonna do. Yeah, it just came out on Netflix, and then I think Saturday. Yeah, because I was off Sunday too, so I had 2 days off in a row. So I just started watching it, and the reason why I started watching it is because it's not really my type of movie. From the break, but because I really like the actors in the movie, and I was familiar with the actors in the movie, so I just kind of watched it, and yeah, it was an interesting movie. I think it's also a beneficial. It gives a lot of stuff for us to talk about and but like I don't know, talk about, okay. Analyze, maybe is the word I was looking for. Analyze, break down is kind of what I was looking to say. So, okay. Well, first, okay, I'm all over the place now. All right, so rewind, slow it down. So pretty much like what I was saying is, what I want to do is just to let you guys know how this episode is going to go. I'm only going to focus on this movie. I got a whole bunch of other backlog of shit that I keep pushing back for other episodes, but this popped up, and of course it's new on Netflix, so algorithm, come on, work for me. but also, so here's how I'm gonna break it down. I'm going to first do kind of a spoiler-free review, for the first part. As much as possible, just speak generally about the movie. Then at some point in time, whenever I exhaust that, I'm going to stop and really give my in-depth analysis of the film itself. So first I'm going to sell you on the film, then I'm going to break it down, because there's a lot of stuff that I can talk about on this that it kind of piggybacks on a lot of shit that we've been talking about over the months, especially related to like relationships and dating and stuff like that. So it was really interesting. Like I was like, I'm not taking notes on this thing, but I did what I definitely did do is, after I finished it about like 45 minutes, an hour ago, set up everything, called my parents in America, but I also been line messaging Jeff, or just bullshit with him, but I haven't watched any TV or anything like that, just to keep the content a bit fresher in my mind, and so that I can kind of shoot from the hip, if you will, and instead of like having it muddled with a bunch of other like Japanese content and stuff like that. So that's what I did. So let's just get into it. So before I start forgetting what the fuck I want to talk about. All right. But basically, I'm without giving too much away about this movie. Well, okay. Before I say that, the one thing that struck me about this movie though is the amount of product placement in this movie. It was kind of funny. Like they squeezed in, like I was like, damn, because in Japanese movies don't really do product placement like they do in the West. But because it's a Netflix film, I guess they're like, okay, we need some to make up for some of this money. But I counted, I was like surprised at that amount of product placement in the movie. I mean, it was done very subtly, and it wasn't like Transformers, how they do their shit, or like Michael Bay Transformers, but yeah, it wasn't like annoying product placement, but I was just kind of like chuckling a few times because I was just like, wow, y'all really did product placement for this. Okay, fine. Like, that's cool. And yeah, so you'll kind of see that pop up in the movie. Especially in like the first like 15, 20 minutes of the movie, there's a lot of product placement that's really subtle, but it's done. I mean, it's just like, okay. Like the major, motivation for the main character is like product placement. I was like, geez. Okay, whatever. Anyway, whatever. Anyway, so pretty much, okay, what this movie is about is the main character of this story. Oh, okay, but before I start that, the actors, I was saying I like the actors because the main character of this, I talked about like a TV show I watched earlier this year, maybe last year, I can't remember, called Moteki. About the guy who I think wants to lose his virginity, and he's like meeting all these women, and he wants. I talked about it's like a comedy I watched on Netflix as well. I don't think that had English subtitles, but he's the main actor. He's the main guy from that, and I liked his performance in Moteki, so I saw he was in it. That's what originally got me interested in the movie. Then watching it as well, I realized that the female character in this is the same main character from that movie I talked about earlier this year about, I can't remember the name of that shit at all, but about the Fuzoku people who were like, and she's like the staff in the Fuzoku place, and it was just like a weird kind of pointless, depressing movie. But I also liked her acting in it as well, like her character, was quite interesting too. So those two actors I'm familiar with, and I really like their performances. So I was like, once I saw they were in it, I was like, all right, fine, I'm just watching this fucking thing. So that's kind of what made me really watch it. And they had English subtitles, so I knew it was going to get an international release, and so I was like, okay. I was like, why'd they choose this one for an international release? But whatever. Whatever. Netflix makes the decision, but I mean, I think it's good, and it's good for you guys who are podcast listeners as well, because it is like a genuine Japanese film, and film noir. I don't even know what that word means technically, but I'm just throwing it out there. So yeah. So anyway, yeah. So pretty much, it's. I will say this movie, it's kind of one of those time traveling movies, not time traveling movie, but it skips around, which apparently Marvel's Eternals does as well. So, you're going to be time jumping different eras, different decades, different points in the main character's life. And it is not very linear. So it does go back and forth quite a bit. That doesn't really make sense. And there's a part in the middle of the movie that's quite confusing, even for me being familiar with Japanese culture and things like that. It got a bit confusing at about like the 45-minute mark, I'd say. But stick with it. That's why I say stick with it if you're interested in the movie until the end. The end, the time jumping kind of pays off. At first, I thought it was kind of gimmicky the way that they did it. I was like, oh, they're just, but at the end, watching how they did the cinematography for things, it makes sense why they did it like that, because honestly, like an hour into it, I was just like, come on, you guys, like, what's up with this time jumping shit, man? Like, the time, moving, time jumping, like, doesn't make a movie better, but at the end, I would say I agree with that choice. The movie it could have been done linearly. I think it could have been done linearly, but it would not have been. Yeah, no. It would have been a boring as fuck movie if it would have been done linearly. I think not boring, but like, it wouldn't have been able to make the statement that it made if it was done linearly. Let me say that. Yeah, that's what I would say. I don't think it would have made the statement that, but yeah. So pretty much, it surrounds the main character who, in heartbreak that he experiences. And, it kind of gives the backstory about how his life has developed and the impact of like one specific relationship on his life, as well as like some surrounding characters that he meets along the way. And for me, this movie is very interesting for people who are interested in life in Japan. For I think understanding Japanese people, not only their love lives, but their work. The less glamorous side of life in Japan. I think for maybe some people, who I think the underbelly of Tokyo as well. I mean, it doesn't get like Yakuza underbelly, but it does get into the underclass, I think, of Japan, if you will. And people, in their 20s, and it kind of shows how the life path for many Japanese people, some Japanese people that I know that I can think of, turns out, it is quite interesting that way. And it gives, I think, insights if you're new to Japan, if you're starting to develop like bonds or relationships with Japanese people, or if you're in a relationship with a Japanese person as well. It can give some real context as to, how life can turn out for Japanese people, which also means like some of the expectations and changing expectations that happen, throughout people's lives here in Japan. And yeah, I think it's quite interesting in that way. And, it can help you kind of prepare yourself for, dealing with, some of those kind of things that can happen. And yeah, I'm going to get into it in the spoiler section. I'm probably going to wrap up, the spoiler free section of this, for now, just because I can't really, I don't want to talk too much about the movie. I just kind of prefer, I like people to go in raw, and go, I want you going raw. No prophylactics on this movie. Okay. Okay. Let me make sure I'm still recording. Okay. All right, we're good. Let me sit back up my cushions. Okay. All right. Okay. So now that was a spoiler-free section of the review. So if you haven't, last warning, if you haven't turned this off, if you're planning on watching the movie, which I do highly recommend, if you're listening to this podcast, it means you are interested or listening or watching this podcast. That means you are interested in life in Japan. So I do highly recommend you watch this. So your last warning, turn this shit off. Go fucking watch the movie. Come back in like a few hours or a few days or whatever. It's a 2-hour movie. It's a bit long, but and then listen to the other part of this podcast. Okay, it's in order. Not really, but okay. All right. Okay, so here we go. All right. So now this is a spoiler section. So the main character, I forget his fucking name, but yeah, like I said, the movie, that you've seen it kind of jump around from, basically spanning his life, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and now up to 2020, right? And basically from it shows his life up to his 40s as a shakaijin or a contributing member of society. And, it's a bit confusing because the way it starts kind of in the present day, quote unquote, in 2020. And, it bounces around, spends quite a bit of time in like the 90s, 2000s, until later in the movie where it shows kind of like, his relationship with his former ex-girlfriend. Now, the part you might have missed, which it was done very early in the movie, and I kind of read part of the description. So, it was done in a very Japanese way, which again, product placement, which I talked about before. He checks Facebook, and Facebook, he finds his ex-girlfriend, who is the one who really broke his heart. It's not really, because it's a Japanese movie, like it's not really shown in a dramatic way. It's funny. Yeah, just remember the part in the beginning, yeah, where he like almost fucks this this girl, this like idol girl. He almost fucks her, but then she freaks out when the lights in Tokyo Tower go off. He just rents this really expensive hotel and he doesn't even give a fuck her. And just like me watching him, it just reminded me of like Moteki, like, cause that's the type of shit that, that happened to him like throughout the whole series. So I'm like, this dude ain't never get no pussy. Like, I was really frustrated. I'm like, why does he keep taking these roles? I'm like, come on, man. Like every time I see him on screen, I think like he's just gonna end up with blue balls, like, you know. But yeah. So, but because he doesn't get any pussy from that idol girl, he checks his Facebook, Meta, wherever you want to say, you know, again, product placement, and then he finds pictures of his ex-girlfriend. And, you know, the whole thing of, oh, futsu da yo ne, like she's kind of ordinary, she's living an ordinary life. And basically, you know, that is not, again, it's not a dramatic part of the movie, and it can be quite forgettable if you don't really hold on to that as being like a critical part of the movie, you know. And then from there, it kind of bounces around and shows different characters, different people. Some people, even not so eventful situations, like the Yakuza guy, the driver that he met that went in and like, you know, died in like a shootout and shit. You know, like it's not like all characters that are necessarily, what's the word, relevant to the story, to the main story, but you know, it kind of adds to kind of his, you know, his kind of life experiences. And a lot of those life experiences are typical of everyday life in Japan. So basically the premise of the story is like, you know, which I found quite interesting, because it's basically him and his girlfriend. They're just fucking hipsters, right? That's all they are, right? You know, they're young hipsters, and I've encountered this type of Japanese person as well. People who, and it's kind of like trying desperately not to be an ordinary Japanese person, to the point that it's like ordinary. Actually, there's like it's kind of like, if I see a person that's really trying to go against the grain of anything that's typically Japanese, for me, that's like a stereotypical type of person, you know, like you don't realize like how just basic that is, like in some ways, you know. The coolest Japanese people that I've met are people who, you know, are just like themselves and not really like, oh, that's Japanese, oh, that's ordinary. And you can see that in like his ex-girlfriend, because, you know, how much, you know, she broke up with him because he wanted that normal life, and how they met and what they talked. The genesis of their relationship was really about, you know, things that are counterculture to Japan. But if you think about it, by the time she hit her, maybe, I guess she was like, you know, 40 around that time, or her 40s, she kind of fell into a typical Japanese lifestyle. Married, kid, you know, I mean, I think like if I remember, about like 2000, now that I think about it, I think it says she got married at, in 2011. So yeah, like, so now it's kind of coming back to me. So I think, so this might be a small little thing. They touch on it later in the movie, that after the Great East Japan earthquake, a lot of people are getting married. And if you look at, because I remember the date, like if you look at the pictures where she got married around the time of the earthquake, which is like a completely normal kind of thing. So, you know, again, Japan is kind of like, it's like that. Like people kind of move together. The way of thinking is below the surface is very Japanese. So the motivating factors are kind of, you know, when the switch gets flipped, it gets flipped for a lot of people. But basically, I don't really know exactly why, but I'm guessing like because, you know, of the Great East Japan earthquake, people realized they didn't want to die alone. You know, this is my speculation. I'm not quite sure the official reason for it, why like sociologists and stuff said, but I'm guessing it's because they didn't want to die alone, you know, or they being alone in that situation without having someone there, like they were kind of like faced with death, and then they realize, oh shit, I gotta get my shit in gear. And then that year there was like a lot of weddings and babies and stuff like that. And it seems like around that time, I think 2011 was when her character got married as well. And so you got to think, like, basically, and I've noticed it kind of happens to Japanese people around 30, no matter how liberal, no matter how funky, no matter how open-minded a lot of Japanese people are, when they start hitting that 30, 35, 40, they go right in line with like Japanese society, and that safety. So the reason why I'm bringing this up for, a lot of guys and things like that, you might be dating a girl who is open-minded, a free spirit. She's so cool, so great. Odds are, not always, but odds are, eventually, she's gonna want that. She's gonna want to get married. She's gonna want a kid. She's gonna want a house. She's gonna want, those typical kind of Japanese lifestyle, check mark things. And you have to understand that, like, even if you talk about it and she's like, no, I want to be free. I want to like live in like, I don't know, somewhere. All I need is like a hut and you, and we can go to Thailand and we can travel the world forever and whatever, we'll be fine. No, at a certain point, like, generally speaking, that's just going to be out the window. You can't say, well, no, when I met you, you said she's going to go, fuck this. I need a house and a mortgage. I need a guy who's like seishain, so you do it, right? So, well, I'm just telling you, like, this is kind of like her character in this is my wife wasn't like that, to that degree. Of course, there was some of that there, that kind of switch kind of got flipped to a certain degree, but you just have to understand that you can't trust that the girlfriend you have when you're 25 is going to be the same. She can be a completely different person after you get married. Like, my wife didn't change so much like that, but I've seen and heard complete transformations after a person got engaged or got married or pressure, whatever. In some situations, it caused the marriage or relationship, whatever, to break down, but it is a thing that happens. So, like I told you, like, generally speaking, no matter what she says, generally speaking, like, a Japanese woman wants safety and wants security. And, at some point in time, we'll fall in line to that. Not always. I do know some people, who are like, and I'm not saying like they're not like adults like this movie or like hipsters or whatever, but like they are comfortable with like non-traditional lifestyles. But I'm telling you, generally speaking, it's a hard sell not hard sell like you're selling someone, but it's a hard thing for Japanese people to commit to just because of like the social pressures of life. That's all I'm saying. It does take like, and the person you might think is totally cool, at the end of the day, wants a house, kids, a dog, a fucking mortgage, and a boring, ordinary Japanese life. That's what but she probably wants, just to let you know, right? And so, just take that moving forward. Now, the main character, he is, he's pretty much like he is in all his movies, I guess. He plays like the insecure Japanese guy very well. And, you might be thinking like, dude, why is he like so hung up on like his girlfriend who left him in like 1999 and 20 years later? Because that's what I like the movie. And I don't know if you stuck around until the end. Like, I watched until the end because there's a stinger, which I kind of, even if it wasn't there, I kind of imagined, that was what they were getting at, because he's like running through Shibuya, Montesando at the end of the night and all night. And, basically at the end, there's a stinger where they changed the title, I think, where we became adults or something like that. So basically, finally, he was able to get over his feelings, of being stuck, his immaturity, being stuck in like the dream world of not wanting to mature, becoming a responsible citizen, a responsible member of society, basically, through her influence, if you will, right? And if I'm guessing, I guess that all happened in the span of like, because, the beginning of the story is kind of the end, is where it ends. It kind of came full circle like that. So I like how they did that. Where he runs into like, his gay ex-coworker who secretly is in love with him, and but really wasn't doing so well in life, and I personally, I thought the guy was going to commit suicide. That's what I thought it was going to go, but it didn't go that way. I'm kind of happy it didn't, Um, but yeah, he just wanted to push him away because he loved him so much and never confessed his love to him. But in the end, he was able to process that, like, I guess, get over all of those, even all of those feelings and move forward and try to become a responsible adult. Now, that character, me just thinking, like, you might be thinking, why did it take him that long to like get over her? It took him like 1999 to 20. It took him like about 20 years to get over this chick, basically. But you gotta remember, in Japan, like dating, especially for a person like that, is really tough to do. And, unless you're meeting someone at your office or something like that, it's really kind of hard to date and meet somebody. Like in the West, we can go to the grocery store and fall ass backwards into a relationship, or, you can just go out and wherever. We're always open to meeting people online, offline, wherever. But in Japan, it's not really like that, especially, people who, and people, characters like him, that people don't really have the skills to talk to the opposite sex, and it's not really encouraged. And like, I have some students who are like high school students. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, they just wouldn't even know what to do with it if they got. I'm not gonna. Okay, never mind. I'm not gonna go too off on that. But you can tell like they have no experience with the opposite sex. Basically, I mean that's not everyone, but some schools, one school of thinking is like, until you graduate high school, focus on your books and your studies. Then they're thrown out there in university and you're like, well, I'm free, I can date and meet people. And then they kind of get into relationships and pair up and get their first girlfriend and boyfriend a lot of times in university, So I was talking, I wasn't encouraging a high school kid to like get a girlfriend. Well, he can't because he goes to an all boys school. But, I was kind of like trying to like explain to him a little bit about like how women think and like give him some tips. Like, okay, when you go to university, like everyone's going to be going crazy and doing to try and impress these girls. Just chill, be cool, do this, do that, and you'll be fine. And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah. He's like, wow, just listen? You just listen to women? I'm like, yeah, just trust me, just listen to him. And he's like, what, just listen to him talk? I'm like, yeah, just listen to him talk, ask questions, act like you're interested, and focus on them. And then they'll think you're like the greatest thing since sliced bread, especially as a first year university student, when all the guys are trying their hardest to impress all these girls. Like, just chill. Like, don't do anything, don't say anything for like the first month, just keep to yourself. And he's like, really? And I'm like, I had to show him a blog and he was like, wow, they really just want you to listen, and shit like that. So like, and he's like a 16-year-old kid. Like, he just doesn't understand anything about women. And so you gotta think like this main character as well, like he was like 21, 20, whatever. And so, yeah, he just had no experience with women, and same thing for her too. But, and they're like all funky. They got their ideas about whatever, music and life and shit like that. I mean, it's fine, but, after that relationship, he was so heartbroken that he didn't have a chance to really rebound. Oh, he did rebound with a few women, but she just scarred him so much, even, yeah, the prostitute chick, like, I was like, dude, Jesus, come on, man. Like, I was so disappointed in that character, like, when he waited outside after she, like, fucked this dude, and then I was like, dude, what are you doing? But, okay, that's another side note, whatever. I was like, get the fuck out of here. But, he didn't even get the fuck, well, he did fuck her, but I was like, fine, at least he got the fucker. He got sloppy seconds, but... But still, man, come on. But yeah, okay, I'm going all over the place. But since we're going into that, like, let's talk about sex. Okay, let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that may be. Salt and pepper? Anybody? No? Okay. Okay, whatever. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, sex. Okay, so I was surprised that the actress that I like, she showed her titties in this. I was like, whoa, you showed those bee stings. Congratulations. That's so bad. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm not body shaming her at all. Like, but I was just surprised. Like, she actually did a topless scene, and I didn't think she would go topless in the movie. So I was just like, wow, okay. But even if you are gonna try and date like an average, normal Japanese girl, who might not be so experienced with like dating guys, foreign guys, love life, or whatever, that might be the experience you might have. And I don't know if I think I've talked about it as well. Like, not getting the feedback or passion that you might get from Western women, in the bed is something you can kind of see on display here. Now, she kind of alludes to the fact that she was a virgin. I mean, yeah, she kind of alludes to the fact that she was a virgin. She said it was her first time. Well, it's kind of, again, Japan's kind of like an implied language, so we don't know if it's her first time in a love hotel or her first time actually having sex. If I had to guess, just from her, I'd say it's her first time having sex. Just because, just her age, the way she carried herself, the character carried herself, and things like that. Which is totally fine, but if you notice how shy she was and wanting him to turn off the lights, seeming, completely like scared, you might have a girlfriend that's like that in the bed, like dead serious. I'm just saying, like, so that's what I say, like, take your time, be gentle, a lot more gentle. So also, okay, if you listen to some of the words we talked about when we were doing the dirty talk, you'll hear "daijoubu," "itai," "oh daijoubu," okay, stuff like that. Like, the sex scene is not too graphic, but you can kind of get a feel for and see some of. I'm sure you'll, even if you've like dated conservative girls, like in your home country, I'm almost 100% sure like. You'll be like, whoa, she looks like she's traumatized by doing this, but she's not. Like, she's just, from her side, just to give you some interpretation, she's embarrassed and she's nervous, and so again, Japanese people, shame and embarrassment, doesn't really know how to deal with those emotions. So to deal with them, she kind of clams up, that's why she wants him to turn the lights off, all the lights off. Like, turn the lights off might be a big thing because she's so embarrassed. She doesn't want him to see her, things like that. Like when she does get talked to, she covers up her body. She doesn't really know how to loosen up and just kind of, in the sack, it's just more like, this is happening kind of thing, and doesn't really know how to process all those things. So, of course, each person is different, but I'm just saying, like, you might have that kind of experience that might be different from, your experience with women in your home country. My advice to you is just, don't feel, you gotta just get used to it and just understand, like, you're not doing anything wrong, especially if if you're not like a one night fling, if it's like your genuine girlfriend, you're gonna be the man. You're gonna have to take the lead, but do it in a gentle way and do it in like I think like he does in the movie. I think it is a really good kind of case study for how to handle the situation. I mean, you don't have to be all like nervous and like real awkward about it, but also you don't want to be like come here, girl, give you smack that ass, or like anything like that. You just kind of need to kind of work with the person and kind of make them feel comfortable, let them know, everything's okay, and because even if you try to like, oh, you're so pretty or something, and try to make her open up, she might not open up at all. I mean, I'm not saying like open up like you open up and let you. I mean, well, I'm saying like emotionally, like open up and kind of, let her passionate side come out. Like, no, the person, she just might be conservative like that. And that might be, you have to deal with her on that level, so, just, don't push too hard on that, kind of thing, and take baby steps and take your time with that person to make them, because you want to make them feel comfortable. You want to make them feel good. So, You don't want to like, because actually she might look like she's traumatized, but want you to sweep her off her feet. But then if you try and get too aggressive, it might really traumatize her. Like, oh my gosh, like what do I do? In this situation, it's kind of too fast or whatever. So just take your time and go slow. If you're dealing with that type of person, it is my personal advice. There was one more thing I wanted to cover. Yeah. As well, the main character, his relationships. I think there's a few things with relationships. Like the first one, the girl who he dated for several years that didn't work out. That's another point that you can really focus on. So first in the beginning it was a bit unclear because they broke up and she got pissed off. She's like, give me back the years of my life, give me back the time you wasted, because again she was at the point, probably late 20s early 30s, where she wanted to get married. She hit that wall, like, we're on this path for that life and I want that, and if you can't deliver it to me, you're fucking wasting my time. And so this is like that type of conversation and situation is basically what I want you guys to be able to avoid. That's what I'm talking. That's why I kind of talk about being, understanding going into a relationship with someone, instead of just like, yeah, we'll figure it out and see what'll happen. If she likes you, she's gonna fall in love with you. If she falls in love with you, she's gonna want to marry you. If she's gonna want to marry you, she's gonna want the traditional life. That's generally what's gonna happen. So when you start dating a Japanese woman, generally speaking, from the beginning, you have to understand this is what you're getting yourself into, right? I mean, when you're in your early to mid, when you're in your early to mid 20s, it's fine. But again, be getting yourself established here in Japan, like those kind of things, like you got to have a game plan. You got to be on the ball, especially if you start getting into a relationship, because the clock is ticking. And by the time it gets to the point where she, like you can see in the show, I mean, like he's still all over the place and he's trying to avoid that kind of ordinary life. But that situation, you can see like meeting her mom and things like that lunch kind of with mom, like that's how it goes. It's like I'm introduced, and she can see, she's like, I don't think we should introduce him to your dad because this might not go well. Like the mom is the first line of defense in a traditional kind of way. That's kind of what ordinarily happens. So if you're in a relationship and she kind of talks about meeting the mom, or meeting the parents, you're on like the fast track to marriage. So either get your life plan together ASAP or, have an honest conversation with the person, like dead fast in a hurry. And not like, well, I want to do this, I'm trying to do this. No. You need to be like very specific. Look, I don't want to get married, or yes, I want to get married. I can do this for you, for us. I can't do this for you and for us. And you need to be very clear about it because, it hasn't been my personal experience, but I can imagine, and I might have heard as well, that like, for example, that type of girl, her goal is just like, get the ring on the finger, get married. Then she gets there, then she wants to go to the next stop. She's kind of like, go as far as I can see, is when I get there, I'll see further. But that's not her plan. It's just she's only, seeing as far as she can, seeing as far as she can see. She's only thinking about as far as she can see. So she only think to the finish line of getting to the wedding, right? So even if she, like that type of girl, might say, oh yeah, totally, I understand. Don't worry about it. I know, like, we'll figure it out. And then after you get married, she's like, okay, figure it out right now, because we need to, I'm 30, like, or some shit like that, like, and then you might be like, what the fuck? I married you're a completely different person I married, but I'm not saying this, she's not tricking you, or she's not like gaming you. It might feel that way, but it's not. It's just like her priorities have changed, again, that instinct kind of kicked in at that point. And, you can kind of see how it played out with him. And by the time it gets to the point where she's freaking out, yelling and crying at you like she did when she left, like, you don't want to be in that situation. Trust me. You just don't want to have that happen, right? So that's why whatever you do, get your life plan together as soon as possible, early, fast, and just, get on the ball as soon as you get here, so that you're in a position where you don't got to deal with that shit, right? Whatchamacallit? again, that's not everybody. No, I'm not trying to pigeonhole all Japanese women or all Japanese people, but again, this is a podcast I know mainly for guys, and so I've been doing a lot of dating advice stuff in the future, in the past. So I just really always, every chance I get, hammer this home, because you can kind of see how it can play out with a Japanese guy who actually does have a career and a good job, So you coming to Japan trying to get yourself established, you really got to be on the ball, double on the ball, right? That's not your competition. I mean, but the person, that's kind of what they're expecting. So, speaking of his life and his career, this character, though, I would say, because he's, let's say 43, 44, maybe, I think is what he said, like 2020. I think this character will be totally fine, actually, if he, like the end of the movie alludes to, that he has been able to put his feelings beside, and he actually wants a normal, ordinary life, because at the end of the movie his career is going well. He's probably like a manager at a really good company right now. So he lives in Meguro, which is like near the area I used to live. Look at me. I used to live near Meguro. But he's in central Tokyo, so he's kind of plugged in to that. He ticks all the boxes of a desirable partner. So if he does enter, if he does, like, for example, just enter like a konkatsu, like a wedding app or something like that, there's like a wide variety of Japanese women who would want to marry him in a heartbeat, like in their early to mid 30s, in a heartbeat, who would just be like, oh, boom, 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 you tick all the boxes, great, let's do it. So it would, if he really, is full on, that character builds up the courage to actually, say, hey, I want an ordinary life. Yes, I want, to be married, to have kids. Again, he's a guy, so he can kind of do that at 40 something, right? And he has like he's been able to achieve a certain level in his career where he can do that. So if he's full on, which is kind of implies he's kind of gotten her out of his system. I kind of was hoping that they would kind of meet each other again, but then I was like, wait a second, like, he's in Shibuya drinking at like late at night. She's married with like a kid. There's no way in hell they're gonna meet. And a Japanese, in a Hollywood movie, he'd meet her again, but and then they'd have some talk or something like that. But it's a Japanese movie, so it doesn't really work like that, right? So he just meets the gay guy and gets drunk with him and falls in the trash, Yeah. But that's how these things work. So I like the movie because it was a lot more grounded. It was a lot more realistic. In, again, like my experience in Japan, I wasn't here in the 90s, but 2004 was kind of the tail end of the 90s. So around the time he broke up with her, like the way they dress and things like that, like big scarf and stuff like I kind of remember like fashion being like that around that time, and moving up into the present. So that was kind of interesting to see. And yeah. Again, it was I think a good movie, especially a good case study on all those different levels. Because it jumped around so much, like, I think explanation was kind of needed, and it is the type of movie it will make a lot more sense, especially if you don't live in Japan. Like, watching it the second time will make a lot more sense to you. But then again, I was thinking about it, it's not the type of movie that would be worth watching twice for me personally. Like, it's not that deep. But just because it jumps around so much, like, it might be stuff that there's a lot of important stuff in the beginning that you might miss if or in subtle things you might miss if you just are just trying to figure out what the fuck is going on and reading subtitles and stuff like that. So, I think it was a good flick. And definitely check it out. I definitely recommend it. Good job to whoever made the movie. Again, I like the characters. I generally like the story. Again, the middle part did drag a little bit for me. But it ended quite strong, and I think the ending really brought it back together. So I saw, like, okay, that's what you guys are doing. Gotcha. So, okay. All right, that's it for me on this episode, full episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed the movie as well. Let me know what you think with a comment, with a whatever, the whoop-de-doo, whatever. All right, so let me get out of here, and I will holler at you next time. Peace.